Thank you for tuning into Crime 411 with me, Melissa Marquet. I have more information in regard to the case of 5-year-old Keaton Boggs, who was brutally beaten by his biological grandmother, Michelle Boggs, her daughter, Chastity Wodzinski, and the daughter's husband, Peter Wodzinski. Keaton was beaten and unfortunately succumbed to his injuries on March 20th of this year, 2020. For those of you who are not necessarily familiar with this case, I want to give you a little background just to bring you up to speed. Keaton's father passed away a year ago. That was Michelle's son. And his mother was in rehab. She is 405 days clean today, which is amazing. Congratulations again to her, especially right now going through this. To be able to stay clean at a time like this is pretty miraculous. Anyhow, Keaton's father passed away. The story is that he overdosed on heroin. That is something that at this point I have some questions about, and I'll tell you why. I spoke with so many different family members and friends of Chris, and he had been clean for a really long time. He had completely turned his life around. He was in a wonderful relationship with a young lady named Cassie. He lived with her and Keaton and her son and also her mother in Pennsylvania. And they were really doing well. You can see here, this picture that I'm showing is a picture of Keaton and Chris's girlfriend's little boy. They were around the same age. And they are obviously very well taken care of and very loved. I mean, look at how cute they are with the same little outfits on, and you can tell that they're very well nourished. There's no bruises, there's nothing. These boys are clearly in a home with people at this point who love them both very much. And when Chris passed away, like I said, he had been clean for a really long time. Interestingly enough, let me step back here one second. When he was little, Michelle, his mother, convinced doctors that he was having seizures and that he was sick with all of these different things that he actually didn't have. And he was in the hospital a lot, even though he wasn't sick. You know, you've all heard of Munchausen by proxy. In this situation, there's a different name for it. I can't remember it off the top of my head. But she wasn't doing that for the same reasons as folks do that with Munchausen by proxy. She was doing it because she wanted a Social Security check for her son, a disability check. And that's disgusting, okay? So fast forward to Chris. When he passed away, he had just turned 30 years old, and he had spent the day with his mother. His mother was under the impression that she was the beneficiary on the new life insurance policy that he was getting through a fireman training academy of some sort. And she spent the day with him, and he died when he got home. She says he overdosed on heroin, yet there were no needles found with him, no drugs. He didn't have any sort of a tie or wrap around his arm or his leg or anything like that that would suggest he had used heroin. There was nothing there. He literally was found deceased on a toilet with his pants down, and she says he overdosed on heroin. She also said that there were traces of fentanyl, am I saying that right, in his system. And I looked into that today. I read about that because I didn't really know very much about that. But that drug is something that can be ingested a number of ways. I mean, it could be put in a drink, and that drug can cause respiratory distress. It can kill you like that. So at this point, I have to say that I understand why certain family members were thinking that maybe there was some foul play here. Because as soon as Chris passed away, the only thing his mother cared about was getting money from the VA and cashing out on that life insurance policy. That's it. In fact, the funeral home where Chris's services were, the lady that worked there even said that Michelle was yelling and screaming and cursing at her because she had advised Michelle that even though Chris was not with Keaton's mother for a really long time, they actually were still legally married, and so she would be the one who would actually receive any benefits from the VA. And Michelle lost her mind about that. So her whole MO, when her kids were little, was, how can I get money from the system by claiming that they're disabled or they're sick? And it went that way throughout their whole life. Even Keaton's mom said that Michelle had stolen money from them, borrowed money, never gave it back. There were other family members that I spoke with who told me that at one point Michelle had done their taxes and took the information, from the taxes and actually added herself to this person's bank account to steal their money. She also actually accessed somebody's 401k and had $10,000 of that person's 401k transferred to her. And when asked about it, she claimed she had a brain tumor and that she didn't know what she was doing. Really? This person, this monster, for lack of a better word, because that's what she is, she's a monster, has spent her entire life scamming, lying, and manipulating people. Okay? So fast forward to Chris's now passed on, and Keaton's living with, Chris's girlfriend and her son and her mother, and these people are better family and more family to this little boy than this monster ever was. She was never around. Suddenly, she decides to take Keaton. And of course, Chris's girlfriend's family, legally, they weren't married. They had no right to Keaton, despite the fact that they wanted him and that they loved him. Right after Chris's service, Michelle told her daughter, Keaton's aunt, she said, put Keaton in the car, get him in the car seat. And without even allowing this little boy to say goodbye to the only family that he had known, they took off with him and took him to West Virginia. At that point, Keaton went to live with Chastity and her husband and his parents, and of course their kids. Michelle, she didn't really have anywhere to go. She reached out to somebody that she used to work with and asked her if she could stay with her for a little while. And that lady, amazingly kind lady, said that's fine. Yes, you can stay with me. So Michelle stayed with that lady for 3 months. During that 3-month period, Michelle never went to see Keaton, had no interest in Keaton whatsoever. The only thing that Michelle was interested in doing was going to the courts to make sure that she got legal guardianship of Keaton, because that would give her a check every month. She never told her daughter that she was doing this, even though her daughter was the one that was at that point taking care of Keaton. So she went to the court. She told them her son had passed away, and at that point, unfortunately, Keaton's mother had lost her legal right to him, which I don't think she was even aware of at that time, because she was in rehab. She was trying to get her life back together. But she had lost her legal right to Keaton. So they awarded guardianship to Chris's mother, Michelle, and she starts getting checks, even though she doesn't even physically have the boy with her. The first check she got was for, I think it was somewhere around $2,100. And her daughter and PJ found this out. And PJ said, if you don't give us that check, then you need to come and get Keaton. That bothered me too, because this boy shouldn't be tossed around because of how much money someone can get. This is a little beautiful little boy. If you never gave me $1, I would have taken him and loved him for the rest of my life. You know what I'm saying? But they were angry, and PJ said either give us the check or come get Keaton. So with this, Michelle says to the lady she's staying with, PJ wants the money, or I have to go get Keaton. The lady says, then go get Keaton. Go get him. Take the money and get an apartment with him and go get him. So Michelle says, yeah, I'm going to look for a 2-bedroom apartment. I need to go get Keaton. But she didn't want Keaton. She just wanted that check. And so what did she do? she took $1,500 and she gave it to PJ and Chastity, basically to shut them up and say, here's money, so that she didn't have to take the responsibility of Keaton, but still was going to get that check every month. That $1,500, from what I understand, was supposed to go toward, PJ and Chastity were working toward moving into a different home, and the home had needed some work. They were buying a home, I don't know, something like that, but the house needed some work before they could move into it, like some water lines run or something like that. So that $1,500 was supposed to help them do that so that they could move into the home. So again, Michelle gives them the money. She's got some money left over. Instead of saying, I need to go and see about finding a place that I can bring my grandson, no, she says, hey, I want to go gamble. Goes and gambles all the rest of the money away. Yeah, she gambles the whole freaking rest of the money away. And never once said, what can I do for my grandson? Not once. The only 2 times that Michelle saw her grandson during the 3 months that she was living with this lady was because she wanted to see her daughter Chastity so she could get money for cigarettes. What? This lady observed, and she said that she saw Keaton with Chastity and Chastity's other children. Of course, Michelle was all lovey-dovey with Chastity's kids because she wanted money. Didn't even acknowledge the fact that Keaton was there. Nothing. Like he wasn't even there. He was hiding behind Chastity, which is also a sign. Okay? So she had no interest in this kid. Clearly, this kid was a check to her. That's it. Come October, she moves in, Michelle moves in with her daughter, PJ and Chastity, I guess in this other house, right? And at that point, it seems that there was some sort of a power struggle, I guess, for who was going to get Keaton's money, which is disgusting. At the same time, Chastity has a son named Trey, he's problematic, extremely problematic. I've had numerous people in the family tell me that this kid is violent. He has extreme anger issues. I think he's like 9 years old, but I'm not sure. When Chastity was pregnant, this boy was kicking her in the stomach. I mean, he's got serious problems. Chastity took him off all of his medication, from what I was told, and went down to try and get him set up on SSI, Social Security Disability Benefits, because PJ didn't have a job and they could get money that way. So she's looking at her own son as a paycheck now, right? At some point, and the family was like, where did that even come from? Chastity had said to a few different members of the family, I can't lose Trey. Well, now we know why, because Trey was the meal ticket, right? So in January, Michelle sent a picture, a series of pictures actually, to someone that showed Keaton's body covered in bruises. We actually showed that picture on a different video. If you look up our other videos about Keaton, you can see this message that she had sent. And at the time when we reported on that, we didn't know who she sent it to. I do now know who she sent it to, and I am not going to put that out there. Reason being is that I don't want this person to get attacked. Like, well, why didn't you tell somebody? Because I understand why she didn't, and I'm going to explain that here. So Michelle sends these pictures of Keaton, beaten and bruised, or just, awful pictures to this person in January. This was on January 6th. This person hadn't heard from Michelle in a really long time. So it was totally out of the blue, totally random. And basically what Michelle said was, look at these pictures. Keaton's been hurting himself ever since his father passed away, and I don't know what to do. He needs help. I'm taking him to therapy a couple of times a week. And she was doing this because she's an attention-seeking jerk. Okay, that's what she is. She's an attention-seeking jerk. Not only did she abuse this little boy, but she used the abuse to seek attention and sympathy from other people. Think about how sick that is, right? The person who was on the receiving end of these messages believed her, because who in their right mind would abuse a child and then send pictures of that to somebody, right? A logical person would never think that somebody would do that, because a rational person would never do that. And so she believed that this boy was struggling and having a hard time since his dad passed away, and that he was self abusing and then in treatment. So again, like I said, I'm not going to put that person's information out there, because they do not deserve to be thrown to the wolves by any means. And I happen to know that this person loved Keaton very, very much. With this, during this time period, Chris's girlfriend and her mother plead with Michelle and Chastity to be able to see Keaton. Not because they want to check, but because they love this little boy. They loved him. And they were more family and better to him than these disgusting monsters ever were. They genuinely loved him. I mean, look at the picture on the screen. There's no question about it. They loved him. They treated him exactly like their own blood family. There was no difference to these people. They loved this little boy. And they missed him. And they were worried about him because his dad had passed away and he had already lost his mother in some sense, right? So they're pleading with Michelle and Chastity, saying, please let us visit with Keaton. We would love to see him. We would love to see him on weekends or maybe during the summer when he's not in school, but we really want to continue to have that relationship with him, even though his dad has passed, because we love him. He's family to us. They refuse. They absolutely refuse to let these folks see this little boy. Now we know why. Probably because he was covered in bruises all the time, right? Also, Michelle was very jealous. She was a very jealous person. And I know that because pretty much everyone that I've spoken to who knows her has said the exact same thing. She was very jealous. She didn't want anybody around her son. Always jealous of Keaton's mother, Jessica. Then she was very jealous of Cassie. Chris had called Cassie's mother Mom one time and she flipped out. I'm Mom, that's not your mother. All this, that, and the other thing. So I can only imagine that poor little Keaton was saying, I want to see my grandma, right? Because to him that was grandma. And Michelle flipped out. That's not your grandmother. I can envision this in my mind happening based on what I know about her. I can't state it as a fact, but I mean, it seems pretty reasonable to assume that probably was the case. He looked at those people as his family, and that probably angered her greatly because she has the need to constantly be the center of attention, and now she's not grandma, but this other lady's grandma, and he misses her and he loves her, right? And I guarantee you that pissed her off, because it pissed her off when Chris called her mom. It's just, putting that out there. So, like I said, she and Chastity would never let these folks see Keaton. She just wouldn't let them. Come February, Chastity is having someone come out to the house to do work with her kid, right? Milestones, helping with walking, reading, talking, whatever it was. And she says that she will allow Keaton to stay overnight at Michelle's mother's house, which is Keaton's great-grandmother. Her name is Judy. Because somebody's coming out to the house, and she at that time says from CPS, which was not actually true, but it was somebody that worked with children. And so she was saying, since she's coming out, I'll let Keaton stay over. Because she doesn't want this person to see him covered in bruises, right? At the same time, she's telling people, I can't lose Trey. And people are like, where is this even coming from? Why would you lose Trey, right? We now get it, okay? She let Keaton stay over Judy's because the kid was all bruised up. And she knew that if this lady came out to the house and saw that she was going to lose all those kids. And that was the only income any of them had, right? I can't lose Trey because Trey's my meal ticket. That's what that meant. Okay, that's what that meant. So Keaton had to go away so that she wouldn't lose her meal tickets, which was Keaton and Trey. That's what that was. Judy, the great-grandmother, sees the kids bruised up, and she lives with her nephew and her nephew's wife. They say, we're going to call the police. This is crazy. And she said, no, I will take care of it. I'll take care of it. And they trusted that she would, and they had already called CPS and done the right thing. And I'll tell you something. We reported that the other day, that Judy's nephew had reported this to CPS, and a lot of people beat them up online about it and said, you're lying, you didn't call because CPS doesn't have a record of the phone call. And they got a lot of backlash about that online, people saying they're seeking their 15 minutes of fame, all kinds of terrible things. Well, I'm going to tell you what, I got access to their phone records, and they did call CPS. They called CPS on January the 10th because they had seen photos of this boy being bruised up, okay? And they didn't believe the BS story. So they did call CPS. They called CPS and they had about a 15-minute conversation. The person that did the intake asked them why they believed he was being abused. They asked him for his name. They asked him the names of the people that he was staying with, which they provided. And the only thing that they did not have when they called CPS was the actual address where they were living. They didn't have it. So I don't know if CPS didn't follow up because they didn't know where to go, or if maybe, you know what, maybe the intake person didn't hit save, right? Crazier things have happened, but I'm telling you right now, they did call. They did call. They did what they were supposed to do, and they did call. So I want to make sure that that gets out there too. Those people were being honest. CPS did nothing. I don't know why. I'm looking into that too. I'm going to make some phone calls about that next week. But it's been really hard to get anybody on the phone with the whole coronavirus thing going on, right? I was on hold for like an hour and I had to go. But I'm going to follow up on that. But they did call CPS. Come March, right, is when this poor little boy he passes away. He passes away. They took him to the hospital a few days before he passed away, and they told the hospital that what happened to him was an accident. That's no accident. That is not an accident. This little boy had an 1.5-inch laceration on his penis. That's not an accident, okay? That is flat out inflicted abuse to cause severe pain. That's what that is, and that is not an accident. A few days after he was brought to the hospital is when he passed away. So that brings us to where we are now with these disgusting people being exactly where they belong, in jail, okay? And they are all being charged with murder. Keaton's mother, Jessica, I have to say, she and I have become friends through this process, and I am very proud of her. She has been sober for over 14 months. To stay clean during this time, I can't even imagine that. Even if I had never been an addict, I might become one in that situation. Yet this lady has continued to stay clean. She is going to her groups. She is the head of a sober living home. She's working 2 jobs. And what's sad is that she was doing everything that she could, and she had hoped that she would be able to reunite with Keaton, and she didn't even know that she had lost her legal rights at that time. CPS has advised that Keaton will be cremated, and even though Jessica is not a legal guardian at this point, they are going to be giving her some of his ashes. And she has put together a GoFundMe. It is a legitimate GoFundMe. This lady has zero interest in making money off of the loss of her son. I promise you that. I've spent hours talking to her. All she wants to do is honor her son with a memorial, with a headstone and a memorial when she's able to do that. That's all she wants to do. So if you see a GoFundMe, people are so quick to assume the worst of others. Oh, she wants money. No, she wants to honor her son. And I hope that you, if you can, that you will donate to that cause, because it is a good cause and he deserves that. This little boy deserves that. I am going to show you a picture really quick of what Keaton looked like. It's a side-by-side. If my mouse will work here. Give me a second here. This is what Keaton looked like a year ago. This is what Keaton looked like right before he passed away. That is not an accident. It is not an accident. He doesn't even look like the same kid. On the left picture, when he was with his father and his father's girlfriend and her mother, is a picture of a boy who was loved. He was loved. He was taken care of. He was valued and he was appreciated. And you can see that in that picture. And my gosh, they're wearing the same outfit because they did not see any difference between these two boys, blood or not. That family loved them equally the same. And I thank them for that, for giving him that, for allowing him to have that love. Then if you look at the picture on the right, a year later, is what these three people did to that beautiful little boy. And he's still smiling, which breaks my heart. He's covered. He's covered in bruises. He looks malnourished. He's missing most of his teeth. My son is the same age as this little boy. He lost 2 teeth. He didn't lose them at the same time. He lost 2 of his teeth so far. You don't lose your entire mouthful of teeth at the same time. So I can't help but wonder, did they knock his teeth out? What happened to this boy? I don't know. But I know that there is a huge difference between what he looked like there and what he looked like here when he was with those people who loved him. So for Keaton, we continue to seek justice, and we will do everything we can to help this family make sure that that happens. I will continue to update you as I get more information on this case. I hope that you will subscribe to us on YouTube so that you get notifications when we do have new information that we release. We are also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Our website is crime411.org. And again, I want to thank you all for choosing Crime 411 as a source of information. We appreciate you, and you stay safe out